Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our little soiree. I would like to introduce, with extreme pleasure, the marvellous, talented, and the man who has pretty much done everything, Mr. Simon Bradshaw. Bradley.
Bradley. Got there in the end.
Sorry, it's just because I've got a friend called Simon Bradshaw. So that's
well, once I got a stroppy email from a reader called me Simon Broadley.
Broadley?
And I thought if only you knew, you obnoxious git. But hello, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Sorry,
Thank you very
apologies.
much for... That's okay. Thank you for getting me on here.
Right. So,
right.
When I said that you are a man who has done... so, water is the beverage. You are a sensible man, rather than drinking...
Definitely water, yes.
...this crap that I partake of.
Time and a place.
Indeed. Yeah, so when I said that you're a man of many talents who has done many, many things, I wasn't lying.
No.
You sent me through, basically, your CV, which lists more magazines and sort of accomplishments in that field than I think I've ever seen. So you have certainly been around, shall we say?
I have been around, yes. When you work for a massive publishing company, which Future was and is hopefully will be again, you go and you put fingers in pies and what have you. You get a chance to write for magazines like SFX and, as we said, Metal Hammer, although that was only an album review. But it's all good for the CV. Well, 2 counts, yes. It's all good for the CV, though. The Total Football, it depends who you wind up sitting next to in the office, believe it or not. Total Football, which is long defunct, sadly, but it was a forerunner. It was not a forerunner, but a competitive 442, which I think is still going, but it's much more fun and much more relaxed. But I used to work on Tinternet back in the day and the virtual side of the magazines. And every Friday afternoon, we all used to write one match preview, and we could use as many cliches, metaphors, figurative phrases as we wanted, as many as we wanted. And it all got to like who could come up with the best version of couldn't hit a barn door with a tic-tac, that sort of thing. And it was all... Mine was, and apologies to Dawn French, who I love, but you couldn't hit Dawn French with a Mercedes taxi.
Nice.
And our publisher, I love Dawn French, I'm sorry, and I'm not exactly skinny either. And our publisher came out when it was published online straight away, and they said, that'll do, no more of those. So it went back to saying, I'm sure Ronaldo scored a couple of goals for United. It'll be 2-0 and like yawn.
Yeah.
There you go. You've got to be careful, really.
All the creativeness just gets absolutely trounced, and you just get left with... Yeah.
Yeah, how dare I not be fattest and sexist? How dare you on the internet? Do you not know who I am?
That's the thing, though. Everyone in real life is a little bit of a pig. Everybody. But, of course, you can't do that in the real world because everyone takes offence to it.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have a problem with people taking offence to things that need having offence taken for, but I think a light-hearted comment on totalfootball.com on a Friday afternoon is neither here nor there.
Yeah,
and the equivalent, I must say.
Yeah, there is a time and a place, and but also comedians who go out there and make a living out of saying far, far worse things.
True. But yeah, well, I guess so. But I guess you can choose to go and get a Frankie Boyle ticket or not. Whereas if you're just clicking on who you think's going to win between Crystal Palace and Newcastle, I'm going, Alan Shearer couldn't hit the Titanic with a lump of his own feces is maybe not necessarily what's required. But that's how you nurture a readership.
Yes,
not necessarily as crassly as that, but that's how you do. And that's how a lot of people still remember who I am from Guitarist, even though I left 7 years, 6.5 years ago. Because what you do as a reader, and this is what I did as a reader, is gravitate to the author of a particular review. Mm. And, if somebody's doing a review, you go, oh, great. I remember doing this person. This isn't just me blowing on my own trumpet. This is what I would do. Go, oh, great. He's reviewing it. And you trust their reviews because you've read them for years. And that's where the gravitas comes. And you do have, as a journalist or author on Guitarist, in my case, amongst others, you do have to nurture that. and you need to be very careful. Well, not about, it sounds as fat as a concrete elephant. It was about as risque as I got describing guitars. I don't think Dawn French ever came into it. Not until a Sunday.
You don't want to overplay the Dawn card. You want to save that.
No, not the Dawn. Not the Dawn card. No, because we're out of Brexit. Brexit is French. No good.
So I have read a couple of your little interviews with various people, and your creative writing is absolutely beautiful. You create such a lovely picture of a scenario with a real nice comic twist to it. So when did you discover that this was kind of a talent of yours?
Well, I come from a very creative family. It's normally music. Both of my parents are musicians. My dad died 20 years ago now, but he's one of those guys who could get a tune out of a chair. Seriously, unbelievable. Well, not literally a chair, but you know what I mean. But my mum was a music teacher. She's retired now, bless her, but she was a music teacher. So I've got 2 younger brothers, 3 of us, and all of us are pretty instinctive musicians, intuitive musicians. My little brother is a professional cellist. My middle brother is a bass player of no little regard. But I remember, to answer the question, I remember writing stories just for my own amusement at school. And I remember doing it. It had Star Wars characters in it. So that was 76, 77. I can't remember. Was it 76? I can't remember. But I was born in 1965, so that would have maybe 11 or 12. And I remember writing stories. And I remember like space things, Star Trek, all that sort of thing. And I remember a character called the USS Asda Prize. Remember that Asda Prize? It's the best joke I've ever made, and that must have been when I was 12. And I used to type these things out on my dad's knackered old Olivetti, which the ribbon would get stuck and it would all go red halfway through, and you go, oh, bloody hell.
That's retro.
But I remember doing that. I can't remember who I did it for. It wasn't for my own amusement. That's what those stories on Facebook are for. But just these funny, I can't remember anything more about them other than the USS Asda Prize, and I was always very proud of that pun. But the writing side of it, I remember when you have that sort of midlife crisis, but after O levels, sort of 15, 16, what can you do? So my dad really wanted me to go into higher education. I'm very grateful that he did. So I went into hotel catering and institutional management. I have an HND in hotel catering and institutional management. That's the side. You see. So because I was really into cooking. My dad is a brilliant cook, domestic cook, but brilliant nonetheless. Sorry. And so I thought I did that. So I came out of that 3 years. It was in South Glamorgan Institute, which is Cardiff, and I had a year's working at a hotel at a receptionist, and you can imagine how crap that was. I remember thinking to myself, what's your ideal job? And I do remember me saying to myself, some people want to play football for the Villa, some people want to go to space. Mine was right for guitarists. It really was. I bought it. I was buying it by then. And I went down the Yellow Pages trying to, how can I get in? Maybe I should work at a music shop or something. So rang the first 2 music stores, which were, I can't remember the first one. The second one was Jones and Crossland. Then the third one was Musical Exchanges. And they said, well, can you come in for an interview now? Because the guy had just left. And I said, yes. And I started there, bloody hell, what was it? 92, 90, 98, 87, 88, something like that. I thought, well, great, we've got a guitarist on sale in there. Fantastic. Maybe I can meet some people, to do that. So I managed at the right place at the right time to start working at the biggest music store in Europe. There was one in Manchester. There was one in Manchester, which I think was A1. I think I've told this story before. There was Rose Morris in Brum, and there was us, Musical Exchanges in Birmingham. And it's before the internet, before mobile phones. So you'd look in Guitar Player and go, oh, what, Steve Vai, cool, what's he got? Look at that Ibanez Gem, wow. These days you could buy one online I could do it now. But if you lived in Great Britain, it was very, very difficult to even see one, let alone buy one.
Really?
But seriously, we had I think the Gem first came out in 87, which is when I started. There we go, 87 to 92 I did. And we had it hanging up. And people used to come in from across the country to look at this thing. Not just that, we had PRSs and pre-CBS Strats and lawsuit Ibanez's and all Ibanez and all this sort of stuff, let alone everything else, acoustics, drums, PA, keyboards. It was a hub of the entire country. It really was. Of that section, you go, if you were in the south, you go to London. In the middle, you come to us, and if you're in the north, you go to A1 possibly. There was lots of little stores as well, but the retail model now is built on that sort of thing. So we buy 80 Squier Strats at a particular deal from Fender, Arbiter at the time, and it was definitely buy them low, stack them high, sell them out. And it really was. And I met so many people who I still know now in the business. So to cut a very long story short, that's how I was able to get the job on the magazine. When I left there, I thought I've got to do something else. And maybe this goes back to what you asked me 10 minutes ago. Yeah. A boyfriend of a girlfriend of mine was launching a fitness magazine. Pause for inserts laugh here.
Interesting.
And it's like, I'd love to write for I'd love to write for a magazine. How brilliant would that be? And so I did a year writing for a fitness magazine of all things. And on the back of that, I met people like Jeremy Guscott, Duncan Goodhue, who else? Jet, of course, which is another story which I'll tell you off air, which everybody knows anyway, for God's sake.
Oh, hello.
She fancied me, she did. She fancied me, she did.
She loved you.
One of those stories she loved me. I love a fat bloke, I do. It was never to be. And then I did 2.5 years on the road with Magnum, and then which we can go back and talk about. Yeah. And then found an advert for guitarists in the back of an issue of the magazine that I was reading on the way down to see a mate of mine in the Isle of Wight. Would you like to write for Guitarist magazine? And I went, yes, please. So instead of spending the whole weekend drinking and having fun with him and his wife and the kids, I spent the whole weekend writing this interview for Guitarist magazine, which after a couple of false starts proved successful. And I started in May 1996, and it went all the way to September 2013. Very strange.
When I started playing guitar, I was probably 14, and that was 94. And I'd started buying Guitarist magazine in around sort of 97, 98. So, yeah, I remember seeing your face many times.
Well, that was when the magazine was as it was at its most popular. I think sort of before I started, 92, 93, 94, when the mag was like 400 pages thick. And it's got, Phil Hilborn, who's awesome and still a good mate of mine, and Sean Lane, Sean Baxter, and all those guys. And you just everybody I knew bought it. I mean, I think that's one of the things that the internet's great for in this sort of small pond. Is great for that sort of thing. But it has ruined publishing, and it has ruined a lot of hard copy of magazines. Yeah. And I'm not sure, I know I'm 55, but I'm not sure if many people would want to get an issue of Guitarist and look at it on their phone. I'm not sure. If maybe ask a 20-year-old, and maybe they do. But, it would take a month to read an issue of Guitarist because it'd be that thick, and they'd transcribe all these great songs, which they still do. Yep. And they'd have a massive 10-page feature with Eddie Van Halen and Michael Anthony. And Phil Hilborn, who's your hero because you read the magazine, and he's my hero still. I must say, I love the guy to bits. He's brilliant. Just in a hotel room somewhere playing the guitar with Eddie Van Halen. I mean, it's so aspirational. Yeah. And that was always one of the driving forces of Guitarists while I was there. And I'm sure it's still the case today. It's to put the reader in the room with the guitar or the rock star or the transcription. Or the teacher, maybe. Yeah. So if you buy the magazine to, I don't know, they transcribe the solo to Hammer to Fall, say. The idea is, on the CD that I used to run and used to oversee, is to put people on the sofa with Brian May or with one of the many brilliant teachers that we used to have and still have, that I still had. And they show you how to do it. And... that was always the case with Guitarists. I mean, it might have changed a little bit since. I've not seen it for ages now because I can't. It makes me cry. But in the good old days and sort of the 90s until the internet came in and publishing, the inertia of publishing couldn't move quickly enough. We couldn't move quickly enough. Didn't ruin it, but it changed it forever, quite frankly. Yeah. And there, used to be people wouldn't buy a guitar until they'd seen the review in Guitarist, and that's the truth. They just wouldn't. And if and whoever it was, Neville, Dave Burlock, those guys, if they said it was okay, they'd go and buy it. If, again, I'm talking about myself, if I said, the fretwork's a bit rough, they would seriously consider their buying choice. And that's the power that Guitarist still has, as far as I'm aware. They can't fill the advertising pages quickly enough. It's not 450 pages now, but that was always the case. And as soon as we got to get, one of the new, that's why all the manufacturers wanted to get stuff reviewed for us.
Yeah.
The new Fender that's launched at NAMM. People, they want to sell it, and if it gets a good review in Guitarist, and it will because it's a decent American Fender, they'll sell it through the door. I remember the worst guitar I ever reviewed. And I didn't take any prisoners with reviewing, because if you're going to send a guitar to a guitarist to be reviewed, you fret dress it, you kiss it, you put new strings on it.
Yeah, you tart it up good and proper.
Well, you do, and if you're going to spend money, that's what you expect to do. So it was a Crafter, which they're okay. The cheaper ones really aren't, but the decent ones are all right.
Yeah.
But it was a sort of an Ovation, influenced by Rovation, shall we say? It had a bowl back and a sort of laminate quilt maple top, so it sounded shit coming and going, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But the frets, I said this in the review, the frets looked like they'd been put in by a combine harvester. And I think the editor at the time was Neville Martin, who is no fool at all.
Yeah.
And obviously any word that goes, any phrase that goes into a magazine is the editor's responsibility.
Yeah.
If I want to write something and the editor lets it go through, it's their, not fault, but it's their responsibility. Yeah. And Nev actually said, look, are you sure about this? And I said, here's the guitar, what do you think? And he went, yep. And it went in. And then I don't think anything more, very aren't I funny? I didn't think anything more about it until we went to another music show, which would have been the BMF at that time. This was the 90s. And I went to whoever was distributing Crafter at the time. I honestly can't remember. It might have been FCN, or it might have been good old JHS. But the sales rep just stopped short of scruffing me and getting me up against the wall. But he said, if you excuse the swear words, how can you ever expect me to fucking sell one of these now? And I said,
make them better.
I said, dude, dress the frets, change the strings. It would take a hell of a lot to get a real slagging in Guitarist, not least because the number of reviews pages was severely limited, and there's no point in wasting a reviewer's time writing a 4-page review and the photography and all the research that goes with it just to slag it off.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But it's a very interesting thing, the review side of things. It really is, even these days.
Well, I think, as you say, the whole point of as you go through your career, as you are going through your career and you're gaining notoriety and you have that gravitas that comes with you. And again, people look to you as a source of knowledge, and if he says it's okay, it's okay. And I think that still happens now, isn't it? It's just YouTube reviews now. People always gravitate to those people who they feel that they have a connection with, who they feel is going to be honest with them.
I think so. In my opinion, and this is only my opinion, Internet, I think it's got a bit more diluted than that these days. So everybody out there has got an opinion. Everybody's got a good, decent digital camera and can get decent video software. When we started doing video demos, it was like pulling teeth. These days you can do it in an afternoon.
Yeah.
I still think people gravitate to it. Look at Rob and the Andertons guys. What's his name? Oh my God, what's Anderton's name? Oh my God, Lee. I'm so sorry, man. It's like forgetting my mum's name, that is.
That's all right, I forgot your second name. It's fine. It's the theme of the evening.
Yes. Bradworth. There we go, forgetting people's names.
Brad Smith.
Lee, I'm really, not that anybody will see this, but I'm really sorry. But, not that Lee will see it, I mean. But anyway, but that's why, should we start again? That's why.
Fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That's why Chappers and the Captain's videos toe curling though those names are, gets hundreds of thousands of reviews. But the thing is, they do it from a retail standpoint. So they have a really good fun review. Rob can play the guitar like ringing a bell, that's fine, and they they get everybody on. The idea is to get them to go to Anderton to buy the guitar.
Yeah.
And absolutely quite rightly. And they don't have necessarily any journalistic need for any balance, really.
Yeah.
And what I mean, let me qualify that. If you're sat in a reviewer's seat for guitars, you've got to have balance. So there's no point in me reviewing an ESP Snakebite, the Hetfield, and go, well, it's not very good for country, is it? Because that's not what it's for.
Yeah.
Ditto, there's no point in getting a 52 reissue telly and saying it's crap for playing Enter Sandman. That's the thing. But the reviews team that we had, past tense, was composed of full-time members of staff and lots of freelancers as well. And the rock and metal stuff I would be given that to review. Things like, I don't know, a 50s reissue Strat, a nice one. Neville would be down to that because he owns them, and I don't know anything about a 57 Strat other than, cool, that's expensive, isn't it? And you can't play Enter Sandman. You can't play Enter Sandman on it. But that's another thing that goes to the gravitas and people trusting readers, hopefully trusting what you say. And we had all those sort of guys, and a lot of those guys are still there. Nev still writes for guitars, as far as I'm aware. And you can't be an expert in anything on guitars. You can't. I can play the acoustic, but I don't know anything about how they're made. There's no point in me doing a review on a £5,000 Santa Cruz because I'd go, well, it sounds lovely, and look at the wood. Because people are going to buy that aren't interested in that. They want to know about the bracing and about the glue that's used and how the wood is tempered and all that sort of stuff. Whereas on an ESP Snakebite, they want to know whether it's value for money. That's the main question that people want to know.
Yeah.
Is it value for money? And if you say no, it's not, you buy the LTD version, which is $899 rather than $399.
Yeah, add a few more lines on there.
Yeah,
we have.
no.
Right, if I was to say that a very certain special bumder has said "Evening, ladies," who do you think that would be?
Matthew Speed.
Yes. Hello, Matthew. Hello, darling.
Hello, Matty boy.
So Matthew
Speed by name.
Yeah, Speed by name, Speed by ejaculation.
Matt. Yes, well, allegedly so. Two bump speed, they call him.
It's not
mate,
it's not premature. I've just got things to get on with.
Hey, I've just got to go on with you.
We've had Mr. Snap Davis said, "Did Axe ever send you a guitar?"
Axe, no, we didn't go anywhere near that.
No,
thank you. Nope.
Is that all we're going with that?
That's all we're going with that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Line under. Sup, Matthew? Oi. Yes, we are talking about your genitals already. That's going to be the shape of the evening. So, as a player, then obviously you are a guitarist as well.
Yes.
Did the guitaring side of things start before your writing sort of dreams and career?
Oh, very much so. As I said, I came from a musical family, so I don't know what turned me onto the guitar initially. But I had one of those birthdays where I woke up and there was a guitar at the bottom of the bed.
Nice.
So it was a half size, like everybody started on, a half size. No idea what the make was, but a nylon string, a Spanish one. And I had the equivalent of Playing a Day. I can't remember what it was, but there were two songs: "Go and Tell Aunt Lucy," which is C C C C G G C C G G G. Great. I am Axl Rose, although he was
take note, Matthew.
15 years to go. Yeah, Matt. Yeah, I can play C. But it was on a cassette, and I couldn't read music. I still can't, which I am very sorry about. But halfway through this, you'd look at the tune, and it was just the chump thing of the chords. Mm-hmm. The tape broke, so it's like, oh no. So I don't remember doing this. My mum told me this many years later, that I worked out how it would sound. How it should sound from what I remember the tape being, if you see what I mean.
Wow.
So trying to learn, I mean, I can't pretend it's incredibly big-headed to say this, but it's true. I've got a really good ear, and that's down to my parents. The same with my brothers have got the same thing. Mm. Thanks to our parents and our sort of genetic makeup, we are musically predisposed to be able to you know, I've got perfect pitch. I can hear a song, not every song, don't get me wrong, but I can hear a song and play it pretty much immediately. I'm not talking about a Dream Theater song, but, you know, say I don't know, an AC/DC song, or, you know, or a Queen song, something that I've heard a couple of times. I can play it, and I can work it out in my head and play it, not flawlessly, but I can, you know, you can get it around. And I'm very fortunate because I've got my best mate, well, not my best mate, one of my best mates from Brum, I won't say because he will be listening to this, loves the guitar and has no musical talent whatsoever. It's so sad. He's a massive Beatles fan. He's a well-made man, and he used to buy, you know, the Lennon Rickenbackers, which are only 3 in the country. You know, the Lennon, the piggyback AC30s that they all used to play, and he hasn't got a musical bone in his body.
Can he play it at all, or is it all?
No, not really.
Oh,
not
that's
really.
a shame.
It is a shame. He's a lovely. Sorry, and he's a lovely guy, and anything creative. Like, I can't draw. I'm not. You know, I'm making myself sound like I'm absolutely brilliant. I don't mean to do that. Although I am, but I don't. Oh God! No, I don't mean to do that. But
do that again. I think everyone just got a little bit horny. Oh, I think we just broke the stream.
Let it go. Let it go. There we go. Broken the stream. I had the serpent's tongue the other day talking about breaking the stream. That did make me laugh. But I've completely forgotten I'm slagging on one of my mates and then talking about weed. So there we go. What were we talking about?
You were talking about your friend Ant, and you were saying that you didn't want to come across as a dickhead. You're just being an honest man.
Just being a dickhead. Oh, it's my friend Andy, actually, not Ant.
Sorry, saying
Ant. It's okay. Ant. He doesn't mean you. Sorry. Ant also does the podcast on 9 to 42. Doesn't mean you. But I don't. You know, I shouldn't be mocking him for having not much musical talent. If you want to go and buy a John Lennon Rickenbacker 330, why the F shouldn't you? And that's what I find. That's what music retail is all about for me. It's aspirational, and you just need to buy a guitar and get into it. And if you get into it, who cares? You know, it's all very well me sitting there going, I could get a tune out of anything. Well, who cares? You know, if you want to buy a Strat, go and buy a bloody Strat. That's what they're for. They're great. Yeah, it's a great time to buy a guitar at the moment. It really is.
The point of being a musician is to generally take the piss out of everybody else. That's
of course.
That's what we do. That's what we, you know, especially, and also the other thing musicians are great at doing is mocking people who play better than ourselves. We'll just do that lean into your mate and you just watch a guitar player for a whole gig, watch them make one mistake and then lean into your friend and go, or cross your arms and just look completely unimpressed for the entire show.
Well, of course, that patronising nature is what makes guitarists great.
Yes, it's a staple part of our diet.
Absolutely, mate.
Right, we've got Emma Bardell. Emma is a fantastic lady.
Hi, Em.
Superb interviewer. She's always been sort of like your various metal festivals like Bloodstock, whatnot, smoozing with the elites and all that kind of thing. Speaking of which, I think we should drift on to one of your greater claims, because there's loads I want to talk to you about, 'cause especially during our pre-show chat, you've already tweaked my nipples of interest, so I think it's well worth delving into some of those things. But one of the things people may know you very well for is the book you wrote with Brian May about the Red Special. Ta-ching!
I don't know what you mean.
Me neither. Buy your copy now.
That's the version you can't get yet, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yes, that is a lifetime achievement award for me. That if I could have been born and said, "What would you like to do?" It's do that, and I'm very lucky to have. I got myself into it. I hasten to add, it wasn't down to anybody but for me, really.
Right. Before you start the story, everyone, make yourself comfortable. Oh, Em's also doing her radio show shortly, so just stick around as long as you can, Em. Right.
Oh, it's so new. This is a new copy. This is a copy I'm saving to get signed.
Sexual chocolate, baby. Right.
That gets crazy. Right, hit me, baby.
Okay, I'm sitting comfortably. Hopefully everyone is too. Let us hear the magical story of how you and the Red Special book came about. Take it away.
The magical story. Well, talking about what every guitar player says, every guitar player has a hero. Every single one and you don't necessarily have to play like them, but you have to have a guitar hero. And mine has always been Brian May. I remember hearing Bohemian Rhapsody when I was 10, running around in the snow in February 1976 when Somebody to Love came out. And I didn't know he had a homemade guitar. I didn't know what I was hearing was a guitar. But when I started getting into music, like properly, so in 1978 I was 14, 13, 14. A mate of mine at school had an album by Queen called Jazz. So I said, "Oh, can I borrow that?" And he went, "All right then." I didn't know who they were other than they did that funny Bohemian Rhapsody song, Biz Miller and all that. And I put it on, and the first track on Jazz is a track called Mustafa. It's a very strange.
It's a
Freddie
great
sort
tune.
of did this. Yeah, it's a right tune, and Freddie's doing this sort of imam sort of. I won't, fair enough. But he's allowed because he's from Zanzibar, so he's allowed to do that. And within, I don't know, a minute of that, there's a triple guitar break that goes. And I remember I've been hit by the Love Thunderbolt much later in life. Twice, actually, thank you. Unfortunately, I'm married to the second one of those, which is Ace.
Well done.
But I remember, but Donk, what on earth is that? And my fascination with Queen began on that date in 1978. I subsequently bought. I thought it was a long story. I subsequently bought all of the albums up to that point, which was 1980. So I even bought Hot Space, which is the worst thing I've ever heard, and Flash Gordon, which isn't. I bought all of them up to that point, apart from Sheer Heart Attack.
Be careful what you say about Flash.
Let me finish. That's okay. He saved every one of us.
Exactly.
But I didn't buy Sheer Heart Attack because they were all greased up and looked very gay. For which I apologise for that Neanderthal thought of my teenage self. No, Flash Gordon's great. I saw them on the Play the Game tour, and they started with Flash. And it was just the most exciting thing I've ever heard. Anyway, so that's why I was in Queen. Everybody likes Queen.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's no reason not to.
No.
I can't. He's a bit gay, but that We Were Rocky's quite good, isn't he? So everybody likes Queen. Even our mums like Queen. Let's not beat around the bush.
True. My mum does like Queen.
She does. So I'm a guitarist, and one of the many things I used to do during the 90s, we had a music show, a guitar show. Not as good as ours, Jace. It's okay. It's all dead now. Or may as well be, called the National Music Show. So I worked that 1997, 98, 99. 97 was okay, 98 was okay, but 1999 we really upped the stakes. Me and the editor of Rhythm Magazine at that time, who's a lovely lady called Louise King, who's one of my friends. Hello, Lou. We decided, right, let's really up the ante. So she knew a lot of people in the drum world. So she got Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers and Steve White, who was playing with Oasis at the time, and I didn't know him at the time, but a massive Japanese drummer called Jumbo Akira.
I know the name.
I hope I pronounced the name. But those are some big names. And because I'd interviewed Brian the year previously in 1998 for a cover of Guitarist, I'd become friends with his guitar tech, a guy called Pete Malandrone, who I'm still very good friends with. So I rang Pete and said, does Brian fancy coming and playing this thing? Just like you'd ring your mate's dad who plays a bit. It really was like that. And a common theme in the story is the trust that these people have for any journalist, really. But because we'd had a good interview, it was mostly Neville, to be honest. I just sat there going, while Brian was talking about. It wasn't that far away. It really wasn't that far away.
Don't blame you.
So I went through 3 or 4 months dealing with Jim Beach, who's Queen's manager, sending faxes. Those were the days, pre-internet, I hasten to add. And to cut a long story short, I got Brian May, to be honest, to play at the National Music Show. So we had on the I think it was the Sunday internet? We had Paul Gilbert, who I got through Simon Fraser Clarke at Laney. Then Steve White did a set on drums, and then we had Brian May. And it was I just like chatting like this in front of like 2,500 people. Lots of people. I'm a member of lots of Red Special forums these days, and there are some really interesting and knowledgeable people on there, irrespective of what people's preconceptions of fora might be. And lots of people were there, and I was thinking, if I'm a fan of Queen, I'd love to go and see some lucky fat bastard like me in a Mesa Boogie suit, which is what I was wearing, a Mesa Boogie shirt, talking to Brian May. But Brian, I thought, well, what's he going to be like? And Brian's just a real professional. He could see I was a little bit nervous, a bit out of my depth. Once we got into it, it was fine. It was just chatting. But he had the guitar, and Peter got the full rig, and he did the delay thing and all this sort of stuff. And he sort of said, thank you very much. And while Chad was doing his thing, we were just chatting, me and Brian, and I think his PA lady was there, Sarah, who still works for him there, just chatting. And Brian said to me, you should come round and have tea. Now I thought, well, is that a euphemism? Or I don't. Will he rock me?
Does it matter?
I don't mind if I do. Does it? No, absolutely not. Because I really am the wider the waistband, the deeper the quicksand. Or so I have read. I really am the case with that. Chad finished, and Chad came out all covered in sweat. He said, "Real Brian, whatever accent he's got. Come on." So between them two, decided that they will play We Will Rock You. So Chad went back on in front of all of our punters that we had, and did that like that. And I was sat. I've got goosebumps talking about it. I was with Louise, editor of Rhythm, who got Chad, and Brian just went and did that, and I just looked at Louise, and she was crying to bits, and that set me off. And we're really good mates. She's happily married, and so am I. So it was nothing like this. We just hugged each other at the side of the stage, while Chad Smith and Brian May, that we had organised to get to this bloody show for our bloody publishing company, bloody, to play We Will Rock It. So on the back of that, we developed a good working relationship. As I said, I'm really good personal friends with Pete Malandrone, and we're still mates. We're proper mates. So fast forward 10 years or so, we used to get lots of books come through to the guitarists, and we got a version of the Black Strat, which is Dave Gilmour's big guitar. Sorry, I'm talking dribble. I'm getting all really excited.
No.
It was a guitar. It was a book about everybody else listening. Sorry, lads. A guitar about Dave Gilmour's Black Strat that his tech had written. So, that'd be good. I can take Pink Floyd. I can take them or leave them. But maybe something was in the back of my head was going, So I was reading it, and the repro, which is the images that were cut out, was really poor. And I thought it wasn't written very well. Sorry. Phil Taylor was the name of the tech there, I've remembered. I thought, it'd be great if somebody would do a version of that book about Brian May's guitar. Because not many, most of the inner sanctum of fans know that he built it himself.
Yeah.
But, the casual fan who likes, listen to Radio Gaga on the radio won't necessarily know that Brian had made the guitar by himself not by himself, and made it at home with his dad.
Yeah.
So I just rang Pete and I said, "What about this?" And he said, "Well, it sounds like a good idea to me." Good idea to me, Bradders. So he said, "Well, why don't you just put a plan together?" Pitch the idea to Brian. Now, anybody else doing that, Pete, I write a book about the guitar. Pete would be very wary about saying, "Oh yeah, do that," because it's not down to him.
Yeah.
But because of the professional relationship that I had with Brian, interviewing on stage, interviewing a couple of times for the magazine since, I'd been to his house and, one of them, the Country Pile, and hadn't been a dick, which is, it's the whole trust thing.
Yeah.
So I put together a pitch which took 3 or 4 months, a whole plan, all the chapters. I knew that Brian wanted a particular bit about him playing on the roof of Buckingham Palace that he'd written himself. And we decided that was probably its most famous appearance, even more so than Live Aid, believe it or not. And I was invited down to the house and went with him and Pete and a couple of people who I can't remember now, just sort of like office, Brian's inner sanctum. just to pitch it. I got a few mock-ups of the cover and a couple of layouts done by an art editor mate of mine, and sold it to him. And he went, yeah, no. He's pretty non-committed. That's what he does. That's for him being really, really enthused about something. And the centerpiece of the book is where we took the guitar apart, and it's had a couple of restorations. It only had one at that stage, by an Aussie guy called Greg Fryer, who did it in 1998, who took it apart, but it hadn't been taken apart since they finished it in 1964, prior to there.
Wow.
So I said to Bry, listen to me talking to him, I said to him, the great doctor, how would you feel about us taking the guitar apart? And he went, like that, and said that would be interesting. So he gave us permission, subsequently, not there and then, to take the guitar apart. Which, you know,
bit nerve-wracking.
It wasn't me that did it. I stood in the corner laughing and crying at the same time. It was Andy Guyton and Nigel Knight who build lots of stuff for Brian. Andy builds guitars for Brian and other people. And Nigel puts racks together and maintains the amps. Now dear old Mike Hill has passed on. All the best, Mike. But anyway, so we had this whole pitch thing. I had to go to Carlton Books and pitch the whole idea. Although it was a slam dunk, really, because Brian was happy with it and Jim Beach was happy with it.
Yeah.
And I had a deadline of June in 2013, which I hit. Thank you very much. And Brian was thank you very much. Brian was in the process of putting Queen plus Paul Rodgers together.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were touring throughout that whole winter. And, you know, Brian's not somebody you can say, not me, it wasn't my responsibility to nag him to get his copy in, but every word had to be approved by him.
Yeah.
And the publishers were getting closer and closer to the deadline where he's going to need to say yes, or we're going to have to fold the whole thing. And it got to March the following year. And apparently, this is all over my head. It's nothing to do with me. I write it and then that's it.
Yeah.
Said he needs to approve this weekend or it's screwed. And he was in the Ukraine at the time. Queen fans remember when he played it in the Ukraine in front of 350,000 people. The night he came off stage, that's when he proofed my book, which is really strange. I mean, the narrative that's in there is from a big interview. It's not me writing it from the third person. It's all the first person. And I suppose I did a lot more work than a ghostwriter would, because my name's on the cover, which I'm very grateful for him saying. But we did a whole interview that I'd planned word for word, chapter for chapter, verse for verse, and fitted into the jigsaw puzzle that I'd pitched, that I'd made.
Yeah.
And that's how it went. And then the new version was supposed to come out in May this year, which had an updated chapter list. So it had an updated gallery section. It had 2 new chapters. One on the film, of course, and the other on the various restorations and repairs that the guitars has had since 2013. And that's where Andy Guyton and Nigel Knight come in, and Pete as well. You know, those are the guys who pointed me in the right direction for questions to ask him, Brian. But honestly, you know, I'm sure he's like this with everybody else. But the second time for these extra chapters, it was just me, Pete, and him drinking coffee and talking biscuits, or we're talking bollocks, I should say, eating biscuits, talking about the film and talking about the new volume control, and that one of the fret markers on the 12th fret had disappeared, and you know what else had happened, I can't remember offhand, that the bodywork was falling apart. Just talking like he's a normal guy. Now, to get to that position, I'm very lucky like that, because you do have to know how to handle yourself with that, because it's Brian May and you're in his home. And, you know, you can't go in there and be a fan. You can't go in there and be a dick. But you also can't go in there and be a shrinking violet. So one of the things that's fortunate for me in this regard is that he wouldn't let me keep going back if he thought I was an idiot. Just talking as a you know, with the right amount of reverence, but without, well, kissing his feet, quite frankly, which is obviously what you spent the whole time wanting to do. But if you're there and as a massive Queen fan, you're there with me with the Red Special, playing the bloody Red Special while Brian's there passing the biscuits over and Pete's taking pictures, it's a dream come true. It really is. And on the way down, driving down, I'm shitting myself, and on the way home, I'd never shut up. But at the time, as long as you're all right, then that's what it is, and that's where the relationship comes with these sort of guys. A bit of trust, a bit of empathy for what they're like.
Yeah.
Because Queen have never been bigger, really.
No.
They're that film, which has done $1 billion in the box office. It's beyond belief. They're bigger than ever. They really are.
It was a fantastic film. Because me and Matt are huge Queen fans as well.
Indeed.
And watching that was just absolutely superb. It's always, you have to get the critics who just want to ruin it and not see it for what it is. It's like we don't expect the timeline to be 100% accurate. They're trying to make a film. They're trying to show a story. They're trying to give you the essence of Queen. And if you're going to sit there and critique every little shitty thing about it, then don't watch it.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I had a real problem with the fact that the timeline was on its arse.
Oh, really?
I really did. And I think I've watched it many times and I cry at Live Aid and cry when they're doing all right in that pub, the same as everybody else. But when I think the first trailer was when they're doing We Will Rock You. It was Moustache Gate, when he had a moustache, when they were doing We Will Rock You in 1997.
Right.
And I was mortally offended by that. And Pete, thank you, mate, said that as much to Brian while I was sitting there. Pete went, well, Bradders is a non-believer. And Brian turned around and said, oh, really? Which particular bit? And I went, the moustache, I don't know, fuck you, sort of thing. But having watched it several times, and whenever I'm feeling a bit down about things, I put that on. And because it's a major part of my life, listen to that music growing up. In hindsight, I still don't understand why he had a moustache in 1997 and why Grill was playing a Les Paul as Brian May. I still don't understand why they did that. But the obvious riposte that you gave, and fair enough, is that it's a film. It's not a documentary.
No.
And so if you get over that, and I have got over it now, I've watched it many times since, and it doesn't matter, because I was supposed to go and watch that. I wasn't going to watch it. I must admit, I wasn't going to watch it on the back of that trailer. I thought, it's going to be shit. It's all wrong. I know everything about it at all, and it's all wrong.
Is that the thing? You're just too close to the whole thing. That's the problem.
I would say so, but whether casual fans would know that he had a moustache in 1997 or didn't, I don't know. But because I'm so anal and gay about it, I suppose, good turn of phrase. Sorry, everybody. Because I'm so close to it, I was mortally wounded by the fact that when he's going, well, just do this, and he's got a moustache. What's the lyric? He's got a moustache. He hasn't got a moustache in 1977. He hasn't. And the other thing that really got to me in the timeline while we're talking about it is when they go to America for the first time in 1974 and play Fat Bottom Girls, which was released in 1978. It's like, come on, any other song than that. But in the chapter on the film, I talk about that. And Brian talks himself out of it. Not that he doesn't need to justify himself to somebody like me, but I did say, why didn't you start with Now I'm Here in 1974 rather than Fat Bottom Girls? And he said, well, you don't need to get the timeline to get in the way of a good narrative, do you? And I went, no.
No, Brian, whatever you say, Brian.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. But I did manage to interview Gwilym Lee, who played Brian May in the film, which was a really nice part of it. He's a lovely bloke. And I think he's better than Rami Malek in it. Rami was fantastic in it, but I think he is the Brian May. So much so that apparently when they watched pre-screenings, Brian's daughter said, well, how long did it take you to her dad? How long did it take you to do the voice? And he said, well, that's not me, that's Gwilym.
There's one bit,
really strange.
There's one of my favourite parts in the whole film is where it's after they separated and they all come back together and sort of Freddie's being very humble in the office. And Brian sends him outside. And he sits there and goes, why'd you do that? And he just goes, just because I felt like it.
Because I felt like it.
Yeah. That moment to me, I was just like, that's brilliant. That's absolutely superb.
It is. And it's not supposed to be a documentary. Whether they said that, whether he said that or not, I don't know. But I can imagine that he did. Because he's the loveliest guy for a massive rock star. He's the loveliest guy. But that sort of steel tungsten core is never far away. Yeah. And as I said, alluded to what I was saying before, you're very aware of, you know, the creative process of doing a book like this, you know, it was all down to him. It was all down to him. But it was fighting the battles that needed fighting rather than the ones you could win. And there were certain things that I would very, very gently say, well, how about if we did it like this? And if he sort of said, then I'd follow it. If he said, no, then I'd leave it.
Yeah.
Because you can't have it. There's no point in having an argument with him about it. Because the bottom line is, it's his book. I just wrote it for him, and that was always the case. That was always the deal. And every word in there is approved by him and is said by him, actually. So,
well, especially
that's a good thing.
Something that's so personal to someone. You know, it's a guitar him and his father built. You know, you've got to do something like that. You've got to have a certain element of respect and do it as much justice as possible, haven't you? And
very much so. I mean, it's very totemistic for him, and he misses his. I mean, he's probably 73 now. He misses his parents a lot, and whenever we're talking about it, and he does sort of go a bit quiet whenever his dad comes up. But his dad was integral in the whole thing. I mean, Brian's not exactly a stupid person, to say the very least.
No.
but the chapters 1 and 2, especially 2, when they're talking about designing it, you know, we'll go to Stewie Max or Warmouth these days and buy bits and put it together. Hey, a guitar.
Yeah.
The fact that they built the whole thing from scratch, including the pickups.
That's incredible.
Although they didn't work in the end, but they had the knowledge. They built a winder. They knew that it had to go around magnets a few tens of thousands times. It just didn't work because the polarity across the magnets didn't match up. So that's the only thing that they bought. That, the fret wire, and the machine heads from memory. They made the rest of it. You know, the machine heads were bought from the same place they bought the pickups, I think. But, you know, valve spring, motorcycle springs for the tremolo, knitting needle for the tremolo arm, mother of pearl buttons for the fret markers. It's just ridiculous. The only part of the fireplace was the neck, by the way. It's not the only thing of the fireplace was the neck, the big lump of mahogany. But
actually,
that's the only thing.
Speaking of that, that's a nice segue. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Someone said, the fireplace. What is the guitar-shaped hole in my fireplace? Said Brian's mum.
It was a plank that was cut in half that they had made a fireplace from. They've still got the other half, which is in the book. They fill holes with matchsticks and araldite and smooth it all down from there. But it's the neck. It's a one-piece neck with an oak fingerboard that was stained with black something or other and covered with Sorry, you guys who know, I'm really sorry. It's not rustins, it's the other thing. But the body was made from blockboard, which is just laminate, really. 2 bits glued on together and routed out by hand. Right. The whole thing was by hand. But it's only the neck that's the fireplace. And the neck goes all the way into the body. The neck pickup and the middle pickup are actually mounted onto the neck itself. The bridge pickup isn't. It's mounted into the body. But they got a lot of things right. A lot of other things were, well, luck, I suppose. Like the switching system. That was their idea that they came up with, and it's a unique switching system. There were 27 possible combinations of those pickups. I think 3 or 6 of which are off, I think. Yeah,
Matt had great fun. Because for those of you who don't, Matt, our guitarist who plays in the Queen tribute with us, he has one of these. I think didn't he get in contact with you to...
Sure, yeah.
To give him some help and guidance on this complete mammoth task of working out what the hell you're supposed to do with this thing.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, the best sound that he uses is the proper rhythm sound. So it's the neck and the middle and bridge on and in phase. So the way that it's worked, because I think the middle pickup is reverse wound, that makes it a humbucker, and that's the sound. Well, that's not the sound. That's part of the sound. The fact that it's going through an AC30 on full blast and with a treble booster, the one that he uses now, adds something like 30 dB onto the sound, and these Sennheiser wireless systems give it another 6 or something. The thing is so boosted, it's absolutely ridiculous. I admire, in all seriousness, I admire people like Matt and others in Queen bands with AC30s on full blast. with a treble booster because you can't stand in the same room as them.
No.
You know, if that room's Wembley Arena, then fine. You know, I've played the Red Special through Brian's rig, and it's a religious experience. But how you're supposed to do that as a smaller band is beyond me. I was in a Queen band once. Sorry, mate. I was in a Queen band once, and I had a treble booster that Greg Fry made me. But I had a matchless, a DC30, which is an AC30 really, but it's got a gain control. And that allowed me to turn it down and get the sound. But honestly, having 3 AC30s on full blast is quite... Even Brian turns them away from himself now. Absolutely ridiculous. Sorry, you were going to say...
No, I was going to ask a question actually regarding that, what you're talking about, the amplification and everything. How much of the Brian sound is the guitar, the way the guitar was made, and how much is the amplification? Sort of, what would you say the ratios and balances between the two?
If you take out the fact that it's his fingers are probably 99% of it, it's probably half and half.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely because anybody, you could get a Les Paul and a treble booster and an AC30 on full, and it wouldn't sound quite the same. It's the fact that it's a hollow guitar, basically. He wanted acoustic, we would call it acoustic pockets these days. Yeah. But, you know, the Burns Trisonic is a very hot ceramic pickup anyway. And it's the fact that they're wired in series. So if you have in a Stratocaster, for example, if you have that in position 2, they're wired in parallel. So they sort of take stuff away from this. That's where you get a nice twangy sort of, I don't know, Dire Straits sort of sound.
Yeah.
But Brian's rhythm sound, as I say, is a bridge and middle on together in phase. And that means the sound goes from one pickup into another, boosting, out into the treble, into the Sennheiser, boost, into the treble booster, boost, into the AC30, boost, and it's just enormous. And really, one of the things that he's not necessarily famous for is the control of that thing. So if you had an acoustic guitar and plugged it into a JMP and on full blast, it would go whoop, like that the whole time.
Yeah.
The Red Special does that the entire time, and the only way it feeds back is when he just controls it. And instead of it being microphonic feedback or feedback that goes through the pickups, which can whistle or go, this is a much purer sound because it's going through the wood. This is how he explained it to me, everyone. So there we go. But with the neck that runs through over half of the body, where the pickups are put on, the whole thing is the whole resonance is generated through there. And that all adds to the sound. And although he will sound like him with any guitar, the same as any of us would sound like, you know, anything. Yeah. If you play a decent Red Special or his Red Special, you do sound like him up to a point. But the rig that he has is pretty impractical for most of you guys rocking out in in clubs and stuff because it's so effing loud. Yeah. But I think I might be wrong, Speedy, but I think Matt uses a Marshall. I might be wrong, but just for the control side of it. But Brian's amps are modded by Mike Hill, who passed away a couple of months ago, so it's very sad. But they're AC30s with a volume control. That's it. You know, I think they have a normal channel and a bright channel. Everything is taken out, and Pete just goes and turns them on full. Then it's a treble booster, and that's the sound.
Because I've noticed actually from what you were saying, when you watch Brian playing, he's a constant tweaker, isn't he? All the time, yes. It must be almost like sitting at the flight deck of a Boeing 747 because you are constantly like tweak this, tweak that, control that. I've got to adjust this, do that. It's a whole art form in itself.
It really is. He doesn't have any pedals. He has a wah, and the chorus is all rack mounted now. Pete puts all the effects on. There's a couple of shift pitching. I always say that pitch shifting things, like at the end of Show Must Go On, I think, and Seven Seas of Ryan, that sort of thing that Pete switches in. But the whole thing is done. He has his little finger around the volume knob all the time.
Yeah.
And one of the modifications that they did a few years ago now, 2015-16, I think, was to remove the tone pot entirely. There's no tone control in there.
All right.
There's just a bolt with a knob on it, and it's a particular. Indeed, there's a particular potentiometer in there that Nigel has designed, which actually, when it's all round to zero, it does turn off because the older ones didn't, because there was so much signal going through it, you could still hear it when it was supposed to be quiet. So when he turns it down to being quiet stuff, like under the beginning of Under Pressure, The amps are exactly the same thing. So for down, out, and hammer to fall, it's exactly the same amp setting as the down, out, on Under Pressure. It's just the volume of the guitar. And in Under Pressure's case, a little bit of chorus from his TC Electronics G major, I think it is. But yeah, it's a very simple rig, really. But that's the wonder of the guitar. Now, they made it on their kitchen table and in Dad's workplace. And that would be pretty amazing in itself. Yeah. The fact that it's been on all of these songs that we all know, and you hold it, and that's the guitar that he played Bohemian Rhapsody on, for example, let alone everything else, is quite unbelievable. You know, there's only one solo I can think off the top of my head in the whole of Queen's canon that hasn't been done on the Red Special, and that's Crazy Little Thing Called Love.
Yeah,
which was a 1957 reissue Esquire that Roger Taylor bought. Not a Fender Telecaster Internet, a 1957 Fender Esquire reissue owned by Roger Taylor. Roger Taylor! Very cool.
We've had a question.
Very cool indeed.
Has there been a custom version of the Red Special?
There has. BMG, which is Brian May Guitars, do a thing called the Super, which is as close as mortals such as ourselves can get. I think it's $2,000. I think there are lots of niche builders, and I hope they won't mind me calling them that will build you something that's exactly the same as Brian's. Andy Guyton is bringing some, or I better not say what he's doing. No, he's not. No, ignore that.
Scrap that.
Something called he has announced it called the Time Machine, which are worn versions of the Red Special. He used to do versions that were exactly the same. They were about £8,000. I won't publicise everybody else that makes them because it does piss Brian off. But there are lots of other makers who are great and have made fantastic guitars. A Red Special, which are exactly the same. But an official one, either get a BMG and they're about £900, or a BMG Super, and I think last time I looked they were $2,000, something like that. But that one, it's the same pickups, same neck profile, which is most important. Same construction. They don't use blockboard. I'm not sure what they use. They don't use oak either. But it's as close as you get to the real thing without spending $8,000 or $9,000 and waiting 2 years for somebody to make you one.
Did this come about? Because I remember reading a while ago the guys you mentioned who were sort of working with Brian on all of this stuff. I remember reading a little while ago that Brian he didn't want to take his genuine one on tour, so these guys made some duplicates for him.
No, the original one will always goes on tour.
Oh, right.
It always goes on tour because he won't play. He doesn't want to play anything else. So the ones I don't remember exactly how Andy Guyton, who's a great bloke, I hasten to add, and doesn't just make stuff for Brian, how they started their relationship. I can't remember. But there was an Aussie guy called Greg Fryer who did the first restoration of the guitar in 1998 and built Brian 2 copies that Brian still uses.
That's the one.
I think he still uses one of them for Fat Bottom Girls, which is drop D.
Gotcha.
And obviously, if the trem, it's a floating on a knife edge tremulous. If you drop the D, it's going to do that.
Yeah.
So there's 2 of those. Brian's main spare is a green special, which is a Red Special, but guess what? Green. Ooh, done by Andy. And I think there's a Badger guitar which had a piezo in it, which is semi-acoustic for Crazy Little Thing Called Love. And I think they have a spare for that, and I think they only take 6 guitars on the road. They do. He does acoustic stuff as well with Guild 12 strings, but that's a different rig to Pete's.
Yeah.
But I think that's how it goes. So Greg did them. I think they've sort of not fallen out of love with the Fryer stuff, but he lives in Australia, so it's difficult to keep that relationship going.
Yeah.
But it's still Greg's a lovely bloke. I've met him many times, and his stuff is absolutely fantastic. The treble booter that he does is great. But I think keeping it close to home, as I said, Nigel Knight from Knight Audio Technologies, KAT, they're the one for me. Build and they're constantly revising these treble boosters and how they feel. And Pete's always coming up with ideas. Why did we do this? Why did we do that? And Nigel and Andy are always going, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? Andy built a double neck so they could do the beginning of Under Pressure on a 12 string.
Nice.
And I don't think they take that on the road anymore because it weighs an absolute ton. But it's just a work of art.
Yeah.
Those things, once it gets the lutherie of that sort of standard, it goes to Fender custom shops and ESP custom shops, and Dean, yay, custom shops to a lesser extent. All right, there we go. 20 quid you owe me. But Brian will only play the Red Special. If he could get through a whole gig, he could do one entire Queen show with one AC30, the Red Special, and a treble booster. Everything else is just frosting.
Yeah.
But why not?
Oh, exactly. Especially when it sounds like that. Why would you want anything else?
It's just ridiculous. It's unbelievably good sound.
But one other thing about Brian, I can't fathom, but any guitarist out there, I may be in the minority, but being able to finger pick a 12-string acoustic.
Yeah, well, he's got it strung the wrong way round though. So normally you have the bass. So if you're strumming it down as a right-hander, the 6 normal strings, the thicker strings, are uppermost, and the octave strings are just beneath them. Yeah. But he has them the other way. So he has the treble strings on the top. So when you're doing rolling normal finger picking like that, that's why he's able to get the proper chiming sound. Because if you were to do it on a normally strung 12 string, you'd hit the bass strings and miss the octave strings underneath. Yeah. Whereas specifically, that's why he's always had it, as far as I'm aware. The Ovations in the 80s, the Yamahas, and the Guilds more recently, they're strung. I hope I'm right about this, Internet, but I'm pretty sure I am. The last time I played one, it was the treble strings are on the top as you strum down, and the bass strings are on the bottom. So you can do that. Ding, 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 ding. So when you're finger picking to Begin to Love of My Life, the D is the octave, which is the same as the E strings. Yeah. That's another idiosyncrasy that he has, that because of his stature has become canon, quite frankly. Well, I think it's really interesting.
The 12-string I've played, I think that was strung the same then. That had the octave string on top, bass string underneath.
Right.
So are there different schools of that then? I didn't realise that.
I'm not sure. I hope I've got this. If people are going, you're wrong, Fatty, you're wrong. I am sorry, but I'm sure that the thickest strings are on the top and on the bottom. Although it might be completely opposite to the way I've just said.
Either way, it sounds bloody great.
Speedy, tell me I'm right or wrong. If somebody says you're wrong, then I apologise. I'm sure that's the right way. He's got it strung opposite to what it is conventional. I'm sure it's the treble strings on the top. But,
gotcha. Right, last Queen question.
Sorry.
No, being a massive Queen fan that you are, and as I say, myself and Mr. Matthew, do you, when you watch... Now, this is a bit of a admittance here from me and Matthew. We both tend to cry when we watch These Are the Days of Our Lives, where Freddie says farewell. Are you in that school of blubbing at that point, or...?
No, I wouldn't say that I am. Sorry, I blub at Live Aid in the film every single time, and I also blub at the very beginning when Freddie goes and has a pint and they're playing "Doing All Right," I think it is. That set me off in the cinema. That's in the first 8 minutes, I think. When he goes pint of lager and he turns and they go da na 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 na. That set me off straight away. But These Are the Days of Our Lives, no. And an interesting thing about that video is that Brian wasn't there for the video shoot for that. So he's photoshopped on afterwards. He was in Europe at the time. So next time you see that video, Brian ain't there.
That's very, very interesting. And you may have just killed our dream.
Oh, sorry. My dream. But yes, it's. I found it poignant rather than sad. It's sadder when they put him on the screens at shows and he does the Deo's bit, and I think he does backwards and forwards at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody with Adam, doesn't he? I find that much more. I didn't cry at that. You cried at that. I didn't cry at that at all. But no, I don't cry at these of our lives. His Make It May Be fading, but oh my god.
Oh,
I'm just so glad I saw them live, with him play.
I never got a chance.
I'm definitely going to kick you in the nuts about this, because people whinging about Adam Lambert. It's like, okay, don't go to the shows. It's fine. He's brilliant. He's perfect for them. He's better than Paul Rodgers. More suited than Paul Rodgers. But I saw Queen in 1979. It was the scariest experience of my life because there were so many people. First gig I'd ever been to on the Crazy Tour, and that bloody the pizza light goes up, and it's like, my God, just brilliant. And we saw them in November 1980 on the Game Tour with the Fly Swatters. And that was just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. So I'm very glad that I saw them with Freddie, and I commiserate wholeheartedly with you and others who didn't see them. But if you didn't see them with Freddie, don't blame Adam, because Adam's fantastic.
No,
he just is.
I watched the documentary actually about, because I
it's a really good, yeah,
it's a very good documentary, and there's some really good points. And I love watching Roger being interviewed, because he just does not give a flying fuck, and he's very upfront. And when he's talking about, I mean, Adam Lambert is, whether you like his voice or not, I mean, he's got a very show, like, Broadway voice, isn't he, I think?
Yes.
But his vocal range and technique is just out of this world. It's fucking, outstanding, whether you like what he does or not. And Roger talking about sort of, saying that, Adam's skill, and he said, what are people expecting when they come to a show? And they're all moaning and said, look, Freddie's not going to be there. He has been dead for however many years. This is what it is. If you don't like it, don't come, basically. And it's,
no, exactly.
Yeah,
quite.
Yeah, you like what they did with Freddie. And, I mean, I really enjoyed the Paul Rodgers. I found, he's suited to the more kind of rock side of Queen.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed their version of Hammer to Fall, that real kind of mellow intro, and I think he sounded absolutely fantastic in that. Yeah,
very much so. It's in his wheelhouse, isn't it? And I think what you get with Adam that you wouldn't get with Paul is that Queen don't have to do All Right Now and Wishing Well.
Yeah.
Great song. Of course they're great songs, but I would say you don't go to a Queen and Paul Rodgers show, I know the answer's in the title, and they play Wishing Well. That's just my opinion. Paul Rodgers is one of the greatest vocalists this country's ever produced. I'm not sure if he's Queen, whereas Adam both is and is a Queen, and who gives a shit, and he's fantastic. Live he's great. I do think that people, this is a generalisation, but I do think people who go, Adam, haven't seen the guy live. Yeah. I don't think they'll ever do a studio album. I really don't. That was alluded to in that documentary. Adam's not keen on doing it at all, because that is pissing on a legend. But if you're gonna, I'll tell you something. If Freddie was alive now, they wouldn't be touring. There's no two ways about it at all. It knackers Brian out. He's 73. Roger's slightly younger, but he plays the drums, so that's more. Freddie can't be running around going "fuck you" when he's 73. But Adam will do it. He come out on his tricycle for a bicycle race, and everybody loves it. He's great. He's a great singer. He's not Freddie Mercury, but he doesn't pretend that he is.
No.
I've never met him, I hate him. This has only gone on onstage banter. But, Freddie Mercury was his hero too. And singing in Queen, backed by those two, and Spike, Spike, is fantastic. I think it's great. And the fact that those people are going out there playing songs at the corner of everybody's life, the cornerstone of everybody's life, it's great. And like Roger said, if you don't like it, don't come.
Well, it must be so... For being, I know, like Brian said in interviews and various times, with John Deacon leaving and not wanting to perform live, and he said, Brian finds it really hard to understand that, because obviously Brian is a rock star and he enjoys going out there, he loves it, and it must be, as a musician, like you lose your front man, who's obviously an incredible friend to you as well, and you feel that you have been criticised for going out and playing songs that you wrote, that you love, and that you want to play to audiences. The frustration that must come with that, of just not being able to go out and do what you really love doing, and then when you finally meet someone, you go, okay, this guy is awesome, we get to go out and play to a whole new generation, and you get criticised for it. It's just so pathetic.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's a classic Elton John quote, isn't there? It's like having a Ferrari in the garage that you can't take out to drive. And what else is Brian and Roger going to do? They don't constantly do internet rumour. They don't do it for the money. They're worth 170 million quid each, and that was in the Sunday Times rich list. They don't need to haul their 70-year-old bodies around the Birmingham NEC and all these places, or the NIA. They want to play their songs. They don't do it as with any sort of rose-tinted testicles. I know you said rose-tinted spectacles. They just want to play the guitar. They just want to play the drums. And like you've said, Roger put it perfectly. If you want to come for some great songs done really well, great. If you don't want to hear Adam singing them, then don't come.
Yeah.
Or don't fucking come. But he's absolutely right. That's all it is. Fred's dead. AIDS was tragic for many reasons. Many, much more important reasons than the death of a rock star, or several rock stars.
Yeah.
It kills much more poorly off people than him, bless him. But I don't subscribe to the fact that Queen died with him, because he wasn't Queen.
No. Well,
He wasn't. Apparently, Deaky was in bits at the end of the Freddie Mercury tribute show, and apparently he made the decision there and then, that evening, that was it.
Yeah.
Brian went off and did solo stuff, toured with Guns N' Roses, did Back to the Light. Roger did lots of really brilliant solo albums with The Cross and that sort of thing. Check those out. Then Brian turned up doing the 50th anniversary of the Strat thing at Wembley, whenever that was, 2007. Did All Right Now, I think, or a free song with Paul. They went, oh, hang on a minute. And they did that tour, and it did the Cosmos Rocks, which is awful, which is why they won't do another album. And didn't want to do it again with Paul. Who can we do? Came across Adam, and it's in the documentary.
Yeah.
And they'll tour next year. They were supposed to be on tour right now, but they'll tour next year, and that'll probably be it. I don't have any inside information. Just me as a bloke knowing them and as a fan. I think they'll do one more tour, which will be next year, and that'll be it, because they don't need the money.
Well, and Brian, he had a heart attack, didn't he, recently, or something?
Well, he had a freak gardening accident, which was much laughed at, but it wasn't very fun for him. And health checks on the back of that discovered that he had a series of mini heart attacks. Yeah. So he had, again, I don't know anything more about this other than what I've read on his. No, but I don't want to pretend that he rings me up and tells me I'm not feeling very well.
Yeah.
This is just from his Instagram post. Yeah. It's all there. But he had some stents put in, so he can't be running around on stage, and he does. 70. I don't have any grandparents left, bless them, but I can't remember my granddad running around the stage at 73. Going, we will rock you, chasing after Adam Lambert on his bike.
Yeah, no, there are limits, aren't there?
There are limits, but they'll reschedule that tour that they were supposed to do Europe and the UK. And aside from special, I'd be very surprised if they do a tour again. They went to Australia and South Korea, they did America. They were going to do UK and Europe, but COVID screwed that up, as it has done for everybody. And they'll do that next year whenever they can, and that'll probably be it. So if you've not seen them, go and see them. They're absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. There's one thing,
they really are.
When you're talking about Brian and doing his solo stuff, I mean, Driven by You, what a song.
Yes,
love that
absolutely.
Tune. But I watched, there was some gig footage of him, I think, when he was doing the tour and promoting that album. And he did a cover of Since You've Been Gone. And I didn't realise, I know Brian's got a great voice, and he's got that kind of real sort of crystal fragility to his voice.
Yes.
It's so heartfelt. This may be blasphemous and sacrilege, but I prefer listening to him sing Love of My Life than Freddie, because obviously it's sung in a different...
I know what you mean, yeah.
It's just...
I know what you mean.
The way it's sung, it just draws you in completely. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. But when he was doing this cover of Since You've Been Gone, which to any vocalist, we all know that is a right arsehole of a song to try and sing. But he gets up there, hits all the notes.
Well, his register is quite high. I mean, that's with the whole thing with Queen, wasn't it? The three of their voices meshed into a greater than the sum of their parts. But that was on the Back to the Light tour, wasn't it? Because of Cozy.
Yeah.
Dear old Cozy, rest in peace. But yes, I remember that's on the Brixton video, isn't it? Yeah, you can get up there. He always. We interviewed him around that sort of 1998, that sort of time, and he hated being the lead singer. He just wanted to play the guitar. There's a brilliant bit in that video where he gets stuck with the microphone over the other side of the stage and has to play the guitar while he's still got the microphone in his right hand.
Oh, wow.
Very strange.
I'm going to have to rewatch that bit.
That's on the Brixton video. I've not seen that for ages, but he's the same as any of us. He just wants to play the guitar. The thing is, his audience is slightly bigger than ours. But why should? There's no reason why you shouldn't. And as I reiterate, if you don't want to go, then that's fine. Don't go.
Yeah,
I'll go and love every minute of it.
I think there's a problem, isn't there, with if we talk about sort of being in a band and being a music fan in general. I think people start to, and this is just my take on it, but people start to see bands and musicians and everyone that they love not as human beings anymore, as a commodity that is there to serve them and serve whatever musical whims they feel they should do. So therefore, if a band does something slightly different, or they're like, well, no, you should be doing exactly the thing that I really like you for and nothing else. And you're just like, guys, come on, these are human beings, they're artists. This is all about their own expression and everything. Just cut them some slack and treat them like normal human beings for a change.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think that's sort of it's water off a duck's back for those to a greater or lesser extent as far as music goes and bands go, because they've had that ever since 1973.
Yeah.
Been slagged off. Didn't hurt them much, but you always want to be. All of us want to be approved by our peers, and that's good. You don't want anybody to say you're shit.
Yeah.
If a million people say, to say the least, if a million people say you're good, that's a one bloke saying you're shit, then that's the one that you go to bed with, isn't it?
Yeah. No, indeed.
Thinking about it, but. Yeah, but I just hope they keep doing it. But I think they're going to have to slow down because they're old fellas anymore. But it's making, again, I don't have any inside information, but that's where you make the money now on the road. You don't make money from albums, do you?
No.
You make albums from selling out, make money from selling out these places around the world, and they're bigger than ever. The places they were doing in Japan were enormous.
I can imagine.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I love it.
50. Yeah, me too. It's brilliant. Good for them.
Well, Brian is, I think it's safe to say, we've got a few national treasures, haven't we, in this country? Stephen Fry is definitely one of them.
Yes.
Brian is another one.
Well, I would say so. I mean, how many rock stars of his stature got a PhD in, what is it, the movement of zodiacal dust through the cosmos? Like,
and you just hear something like that and you respect, even if it's already that high, just suddenly goes, whee, just up into the stratosphere.
Well, it does, He wrote We Will Rock You, which is the simplest yet greatest thing of all of theirs, I think. I don't think it's not their best song for me, but as I said, he's a passionate. Another thing gets taken the piss out of him is looking after the world of badgers and stuff like that. Badgers, well, there's no other rock star doing it.
No,
he's specifically bought land in Dorset to keep the people who are going to go and cull them, to have a safe haven for badgers. What rock star is going to do that? Okay, it's very funny, and he's got funny hair and ha, but I think it's so admirable. He doesn't have to do that, but he's not unlike Rog. He's not a bloke who'll go and sit on a beach in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
with Anita for 4 months. He's not going to do it. He can't sit still. His brain is too big. He's always got stuff going on. There's loads of books going on, not just this one. Loads of books going on. Live albums coming out in October. Tour next year. That's another 18 months of revenue sorted. They're not doing all this stuff for money.
No,
they're just doing it. It has to have revenue and income because it's a business. Much as we'd like to pretend that it's just a band like ours, we're going to get 50 quid and a bag of coal and some chips on the way home. This is a multi-million-dollar operation off the back of that film. Which as we've said, took $1 billion at the box office. There's rumours of Bohemian Rhapsody 2. What the hell are they going to do with that?
Yeah,
I don't think Roger's not keen, but
yeah,
it's made too much money. It's made too much money for it not to be a sequel.
Bohemian Rhapsody 2, The Revenge.
The Revenge, yes. It meant something to him.
Exactly. Oh, Matt, by the way, we've had a message from Matt.
Yes.
He says that the 12-string acoustic, you are correct.
Oh, thank God. Thank you,
done.
Speedy. I thought, shit, if I'm wrong. I've been wrong on loads about things. Thank you, Matt. I thought I was.
Yeah, the grill was getting a bit hot there. Thank you, Matthew.
It was. Thank you, driver.
Right. Bloody hell, we've been talking for nearly an hour and a half already.
We have. Sorry about that.
No, mate. I am bloody well enjoying myself, as I know Matt is, and I'm sure that everyone who is watching as well, because it's not only are you a big Queen fan like us, but obviously you have been there and seen it and chatted to the big man himself. So
indeed. Yes. Very lucky.
Before you go, have you still got time?
Yep. Yes, absolutely.
Sweet. Right, before we started chatting properly, you tweaked my interest. You were talking about things like UFOs and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Come on.
So one of the many things that I do is write for a magazine called Shadows of Your Mind, which is run by a very good mate of mine called Dave Partridge, who's a mate of mine from Future Publishing, from Total Guitar, and also from Brum. He's a blue nose, so can't have everything, but he's a really good mate, and he's a loving dad, and a hard-working guy. And he's got this magazine off the ground by himself. It's it's an internet magazine, but it takes as much work as a normal magazine does. So I try and help him out by transcribing interviews, and these sort of they're not I'm going to say alternative lifestyles. They're not having listening to these guys talking like we are now about when they got abducted. However laughing we might feel that is absolutely fascinating, and it does make you think: is there something out there? I'm not sure if there. I have a latent interest in this, but understanding the mathematics up to a point, the universe is too big for there not to be intelligent life somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, the number of stars in the galaxy, let alone in the universe, times by the number of inhabitable planets. It must be something. But I do think that interstellar travel is impossible, because by definition, faster than light travel is impossible.
Yeah.
Unless you subscribe to different dimensions, and that's another thing entirely. That brings whole ghosts and what have you into it. But going back to my personal experiences, I don't have any supernatural or paranormal or UFO experiences to report. I wish I did, like we were saying.
Yeah.
I wish I did. But he has, and lots of people have. And as we were saying, I do believe there's a great unknown out there, whether that's a ghost or a light in the sky or a booming voice from behind a burning bush, with the greatest religious respect. Who knows? But I definitely is there something. But I do think it's something that is difficult to believe in or subscribe to without having first-hand experience of, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I am fascinated by these ghosts caught on camera too. They shit themselves, and watch it on YouTube, and they're all cobblers.
Yeah, they're absolute bollocks.
They're all cobblers. Paranormal hunters, and they're sitting in a church and going, "Let us know you're here," and it's just half an hour. It's an hour of that. That one with Yvette Fielding shitting herself when she bumped into a chair. It's like, dude, but there must be something. The classic story of Black Sabbath, Geezer Butler in that strange hotel that they were recording the first album.
It was the shadowy figure at the end of his bed, wasn't it?
What is this I see before me? Shadow in black.
That points me.
But I would love there to be proof. But I often fantasize isn't the right word. But think about what would happen if a UFO landed in Wembley Stadium. Who would believe it?
Yeah.
Cool. The graphics are good on that, aren't they? Isn't Love Island on? So in today's culture, I want it gone today, here today, gone later today, sort of thing. How would you know? And what we were talking about was when NASA or the USAF released, the Pentagon it was, that's right, released official footage of unidentified flying objects, 3 of them, 3 separate clips, buzzing Navy planes, and pilots going, "We don't know what that is." And the government, the American government, had long disavowed anything like that. But now this is what we were doing for Shadows Your Mind just recently. Now this has precipitated and the domino effect of a whole lot of retired army personnel coming out of the woodwork, one of whom has been quoted as saying that there has been vehicle retrieval, so that's Roswell, things crashing, and they have reverse engineered these things, and that's where flying saucers come. It's not actually flying saucers; it's the USAF testing these things out over at Area 51.
Yeah,
but because it gets surrounded in so much hearsay and bullshit and conspiracy theories, the real message, if indeed there even is a real message to begin with, is lost amongst the bobbins.
Or as the one thing, when that footage came out, it pretty much went completely unheard or unseen. Nobody really commented about it. I only found out about it. Now, I've always sort of had a bit of an interest in these kind of things, but I only found out from a friend of mine sort of recently, and he said exactly the same thing as you, the guy I do my general music streams with. But again, nobody paid it any attention whatsoever, which is really bizarre.
Well, it was in the New York Times. That was the only thing. No European media, according to this woman who I was transcribing the interview of, no European media whatsoever had picked it up. It was in the New York Times, and it was on the NASA website or the Pentagon website or something, and that was it. But in the UFO community, of which I'm not a member, I hasten to add, I'm pretty convinced that's a major turning point. And within the next few years, there were more things coming out, and the answer will come out. I think earthly bound craft is what they are. They're made by earthlings, but where do they come from?
Yeah. And
how can you prove it? Even if he had the slide at the side of the Roswell thing in the British Museum, that's not proof, is it?
No.
Because the first thing any of us would do, even intellectually, would go, well, that's not real, is it?
Yeah.
It's like watching Star Wars. Well, that's not real.
Oh, just had
Well, obviously Star Wars isn't real.
Matt just put talking about the possibilities of life throughout the universe. The Drake equation, is that correct?
Don't know.
Right.
I don't know what that is. Sorry, Matt. I don't know what that is. I'm not very well read in all this.
That's fine.
I must admit.
James Jansen said Bob Lazar. Does that name mean anything?
Bob Lazar, yeah, he's a UFO guy. I've transcribed one of his interviews. I seem to be getting reflected glory off this. I'll talk about Brian May pickups until I'm blue in the face. About UFOs, we should get Dave on, really, because I don't know enough about it. But there's a really good documentary on Netflix with Bob Lazar in it, which is very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
check it out.
That'd be really nice to, after you speaking about Dave, that'd be really good if he is free and available. I'd love to have a good old chinwag with him about this kind of stuff.
I can't imagine why he wouldn't be up for it. I'll put you together. Once we finish chatting, I'll definitely put you two together for sure.
Oh, fantastic. But no, I mean, the whole point of these conversations is you don't have to be... The exchange of ideas and interests is what interests me. So even if you're not an expert, it's the fact of just getting to know somebody and hearing the ins and outs of what makes them tick is what I'm interested in.
Well, it's fascinating. If we ever get a nice, bright summer's night, honest to God, if you just when the ISS was going over a couple of weeks ago, do you know what? It was a really clear night, but we saw it because we knew what sector of the sky it was coming in.
Yeah.
But there's all sorts of stuff up there.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like Steven Spielberg, but really, if you lie on your back with binoculars, there are things moving all over the place. 99% of them are satellites. The other 1% of them are meteors, or are they? It's fascinating. But it does make you aware of your space in the universe.
Yeah,
up to a point.
It makes you feel very humble and that the universe really doesn't care less about you.
Couldn't give a monkey. Well, just drop a rock on those monkeys and hammer to fall. There we go.
There we go. James Jansen says, unfortunately, lunatics ruin genuine oddities. Yeah, I think that goes for pretty much most of life, I think.
That's very true indeed.
Right, Simon, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Cool.
Been really
Thank
good
you.
fun.
I really enjoyed that, Mike. Thanks a lot, mate.
No, been really lovely to hear sort of from those side of things, all Queen related, and also from your other escapades as well. So
indeed. Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Ah, brilliant, mate. Right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. It has been bloody marvellous. So thank you for Matthew, Snap Davis, Jance, everyone else who has tuned in and commented and liked the stream.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. And we will be seeing you soon. And yes, Matt, that is going to be your birthday present. And that'll probably be my birthday present as well from you. So we'll just book swap.
Yes,
Yeah,
excellent. Thank you.
When's that come out? When's the new version come out?
22nd of October, all being well.
Right, in diaries, everyone. Make it happen. Okay, thank you very much, mate. You take care.
Thank you.
See you
Cheers.
later.